Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AI Lovers podcast. I'm Miguel Neves and will be your host. And with me, I have Clara Gadellu and Gabriel Gonçalves, both AI engineers at TensorOps. So today, the focus will be about O1 and their model of OpenAI. I know that it's now been a few weeks since its release, so I bet that all of you have some opinions and I've messed around with it a bit. So I wanted to open up by just asking, like, what stands out about O1? Why are we even talking about it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that this kind of changes the paradigm a little bit because before it was just about the model, and now we are introducing the reasoning behind it. And I think they shifted a little bit. They instead of just doing it a new GPT-5, which people were actually anticipating going with the O1 and focusing more on the thinking and the reasoning. I think it will, in a way, change the way the industry will go now. So yeah, I think that was like the main thing for me that stood out about O1. So
So your
yeah.
take is that it's not GPT-5, the one that people
Yeah.
were expecting.
Yeah, I don't think it's GPT-5 because I don't think this time around it's really just about the model. It's also about the reasoning and how they did that part of the architecture. And so I think it shifts a little bit the way that we see models and how they work. So yeah.
So Gabriel, when will we see GPT-5 and what's necessary to have a GPT-5?
I think GPT-5 probably be two models. I think what we just saw was a fundamental shift in having two branches of models, one for chat, one for reasoning. And I'm assuming GPT-5 will come out before O2 comes out, but GPT-5 reasoning will be O2 probably, or you can say O1, it's just a preview of GPT-5. But I think GPT-5 is going to be a whole other thing in a completely different branch.
So you think that now maybe there will be like two branches uh, of models, like one for reasoning and one for normal text. But won't they merge at some point in the future when the models get good enough?
I don't think so, because it's kind of like instruction fine tuning on models. So you have this core model that will of course be the same. I think they have a lot of money, but not enough to train two from scratch every year. But I think the needs of the users that are using ChatGPT and the needs of companies that want to do coding or replace like very smart people with LLMs, completely different things, and they need to be expressed in different fine tunings.
So could we imagine more branches appearing at some point with other domains instead of just reasoning and normal speech? I don't know. What else could there be?
Yeah, I mean, the big Sam Altman at some point said if you build a company on, for example, AI, you're kind of screwed, basically. There is nothing really stopping them from doing a one doctor, because the way doctors reason is special, or a one data analyst, or a one software engineer, right? But I feel like these are going to be left for specific companies that tackle these specific fields a bit better.
Hmm. So, for example, just recently we saw Google that it's investing on a new reasoning model. And I know that, especially you, Clara, have been working a lot with Gemini. So how could a model like this really help? Like, and do you see Google and other companies moving towards this? Is this really relevant? How does it, what innovation does it bring really to the table?
You mean like the reasoning models?
Yeah, like the O1, right? But now we see Google maybe moving towards it and probably other companies will follow.
Yeah, I think that somebody has to take the lead, and in this case, I believe that OpenAI did it with O1. But now we'll see that others will follow, and Google is focusing on especially models for math, with reasoning for math, and I think it's a way that you have to increase the capabilities of models on those specific domains. Because yeah, we've seen uh, great models like for struggle with simple math questions, simple reasoning questions, and now we are tackling these problems in different ways by creating models specific for those problems. So yeah, I think it's a way to move, definitely. Instead of just creating these massive models that will be great for everything, just focusing on these specific tasks is a strategic way to go for sure.
So you do see value in models like O1. Like
Yeah,
I've both of you used them in any applications or something where you saw like really, oh, that's perfect. I really needed a model like O1.
yes. I mean, for us like programmers, I think it's great to have a model which can help you like debug your code. And I have tried it with a few shots that we have on OpenAI, and it's better for helping with code for sure than for all. So yeah, I do use it, and I think it is important. But I think that I see that not for everybody will it be the same. Um, because if I just wanted some explanation or just text generation, I will use Faro. It's cheaper, it's faster for that. So yeah, different needs will call for different models, and I think we'll still be seeing that in the future.
Okay. Any takes, Gabriel? And like generally, what's your take on O1? And is it overhyped? Is it? I don't know.
I think everything LLMs is overhyped at some point. It's part of the business, but it was good. So I've been using it to do some very complex coding. So I had to do some tasks um, that involve like coding graphs and doing like recursion. And I'll be honest, my data structures are quite rusty. So it just replaced my need to read 3 hours about graph theory. So I will eternally be grateful for that.
Absolutely. I've seen something like that in my use cases as well. And like, I know that because we've talked off the podcast about this a bit, are us speculating how it works under the hood, etc., the amount of tokens that it uses in the meantime, whether it has prompts in the middle or it does everything in one step. But all of this leads to a lot of tokens being used in the reasoning process. And if you're using the API, you don't really even have access to them. So you don't even get the transparency and your costs are much higher. So while certainly some use cases can be helpful from a business and industry perspective, do you see this as actually being applied in products?
Uh, Personally, I find it really hard unless your product is a software developer. So like the Devon architecture, you could
Like
replace it.
auto software developer?
Yeah. Unless you're trying to do like a virtual consultancy company that sells like virtual software developers, I don't think like the limitations are too big to use this in a real product. So you can't see how it thinks. So that's already really bad because you can't see where it fails. Uh, you can't really so that it's not very responsive. So you can't stream the response, which was a very big problem. So it kind of even breaks the whole contract of what OpenAI's API should do. So it's really cool for personal use. I find it really hard to see applications for it. They're at least customer facing. So it could be good at decisions, stuff like that, but I don't think this is the breakthrough to make OpenAI profitable.
Yeah, that's going to be the big problem in the near future, right? Because they have huge costs. And we even saw like recently, like I saw some graphics about the percentage of money that they make off the ChatGPT web app instead of the API, and they're really getting a lot through the web app. And at that point, you say, Gabriel, oh, maybe the LM is just better for that use. Okay, but at some point, other competitors will show, and if it doesn't have a product need, yeah, it may become sketchy. I don't know. So, Clara, well, like, how do you see OpenAI developing, and do you see them staying on top? Because they're clearly on top for now, but how do you see it?
Um, I think that O1 was a way for them to, in a way, uh, shake things a little bit to in order to try to stay on top. But I mean, if we talk about like long context windows, Google is definitely winning on those. So I think maybe what we will see is that different companies will try to focus on different sides of it and to try to win a little bit, not just like be the big winner, but try to stay on top in one domain. So I do think it going a little bit like that. So they will stay on top, maybe in some parts, but not for everything.
Yeah.
Gabriel, I see you smiling.
I mean, no one knows, right? It's I did see, so, and I think this is something you also agree. So from GPT-4 to 4.0, and this included about 10 preview models in the middle, right? We saw a clear improvement of the usability of the model in terms of the web app, and a usability decrease overall, I would say, in stuff like agentic workflows. I still feel like the first GPT-4 had some stuff that we don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it was like the shock at the time, but a lot of people seem to share this feeling.
But
So
why would they do that? Just to reduce costs, or was it the fine tuning to like guardrails or whatever?
I think it's it's what you said. So most of their revenue comes from the web app. Why would they make something specifically for agents? And O1 is kind of a reflection of that. They're trying to replace agents with something they can sell in a web app. And they're once again really neglecting the builder community around it that now can't even see how the agent thinks, so they won't build agents with it.
So then I'd imagine that there would be space for something like Anthropic, whose most of their revenue is through the API, to really come up and take up this developer ecosystem, right? But maybe it won't be with a model like O1. Maybe they will just continue with focusing, or if they do a model like O1, maybe they just try to do an agent model that really reacts well to your frameworks of agent that you can inject there, your patterns, your reacts, your rules, whatever. We've talked over this on some webinars, and there are many, many more. Maybe that's where it will take us. I don't know.
You see it with the O1, and I think to this day, I think they meant on supporting it, but I don't think it supports tool calling yet, or at least the preview doesn't.
Yeah,
In
not
case,
sure. Yeah,
I think the preview does. So it's the fact that they released this stuff and it's not even like they should be saying this model is amazing at tool calling. That's the whole point, right, of an agent.
Mm.
They're focusing on reasoning to solve math problems. Like who cares about math problems in a company, right? It's the one time you need to solve a graph issue, like I had to, then it's over. I don't give them any more money.
And it seems like the best use case is for programming, and this, because that's what you've said, for example, Gabriel, and I've also had that experience where if you send it code base or some files and ask it to refactor or whatever, it really understands it despite taking a long time. So this might put us in a position where questions are raised as to what's the future of programming and how does it impact it. Is it threatening or is it just empowering? I'm not sure as well.
I mean, I think that for now it's empowering. Maybe in the future, in not so near future, it will be threatening. But for now, I still don't think it is capable of doing everything on its own. Like it's a good co-pilot, like a really decent co-pilot that you can actually use and
Okay, but
think.
let me make this tougher. What about in 5 years?
I mean, yeah, in 5 years, I see like the smaller use cases being tackled. But like if you talk about big code bases, you talk Fortune 500 companies, uh, you you won't be able to have just um agents doing everything on it on their own. I think you will still need developers to think about the architecture and about like how you actually build apps, not just coding the little bits. So yeah, I think it, some
But
parts
I
of
can imagine that maybe less developers will be required, no?
that for sure, for sure. But that I think you already see it now. Uh, I think that now, what probably would take me a week to do, I think I can do it in like 3, 4 days because I use these different tools to do the more those parts that you don't really need a lot of brain to use. So you see that already. So yeah, in 5 years, you'll see it in a way bigger scale.
Yeah. And you, Gabriel, predictions, 5 years.
I'm not really into the whole kind
Yeah,
of
you're not a guessing guy.
no. I mean, like I'm not into the so the this comes from an old movement that was the Luddites. They always believed that this came from like when factories started automating people's jobs, and they were like
Yeah.
trying to destroy factories. I think it's predicting it is kind of like trying to predict the stock market. The whole point of these systems is that if you are able to predict them, then you are already wrong because it's already like priced in a way. And I think it's the same thing we said with calculators. Assuming like in the 60s or maybe even earlier than that, a calculator would be a threat to education. Like, and now people learn so much more and do so much more, and we still need the same amount of mathematicians. So I think for developers, it's the same thing. We are going to need developers. They are going to do more per developer, but the amount of work of development that needs to be done is going to increase so exponentially that it's not going to matter too much. So it's an expansion of human capabilities. I don't think that ever leads to loss of jobs in the way that we predicted. So computers were, remember, like there were thousands of people whose job was to route your phone calls, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All these people were fired, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to switch the way that people work. But in our case, programmers, I believe that we will just have to uh, think about like harder problems and like we'll be able to build faster. Yeah, but definitely a lot of the work will be replaced.
So my way of thinking on this is actually, yeah, very similar to both of what you said and maybe combining it. And if you look at what LLMs are doing as some sort of programming, that you input something there and it outputs, but you have a much bigger abstraction layer. So making the parallelism with coding languages, whereas you used to have to code in assembly, then C or whatever, C++, then you had Python, much more accessible, more abstraction. So maybe you need less developers? Well, not really, because you can just do more. And like there, there's always more complex problems for humanity to face and for companies to do in products. Now you have an LLM, or you will have even better LLMs that you can just prompt and get your program, your code. Why would you need less? No, you can just do more. If everyone can do more, I see it as the amount of complexity will just increase and we'll have a higher abstraction layer. But maybe it doesn't translate like this. It's just some type of parallelism I was seeing. I don't know if you guys would agree.
Yeah, it's kind of like thinking about like capitalism. It's if you have an app, no company gets to the end of building Uber and says, "All right, developers, the
That's
app
enough.
works
Wrap it up.
perfectly. Yeah, you're all fired." No one does that, right? There's always this balance of features that you want to implement, and then you have to prioritize. Okay, maybe in 5 years with GPT-5 or whatever they're going to call it, um, you're not going to prioritize as much. Every user submitted issue maybe is going to be tackled, and if you don't do that, then the other guy will do it. So if Uber doesn't do that, like Bolt will do that, and then Uber will lose customers because they have all these amazing features that Uber doesn't have any. So the whole system of companies will adapt to needing the same amount of developers or more while doing more. So it's this beautiful thing, really. It's dynamic. That's why predicting it is not useless, but it's important to think about the consequences. But it's the best to do it right.
Won't we be losing a bit of our autonomy as well as we delegate more and more to these abstraction machines?
I mean, if we think about it, like this has happened in history countless times with industrial revolution, with then the internet. I think each time we lose a little bit of these tasks that we used to do, And as Gabriel said, like, we will just have to invent other ways that can expand on our knowledge, expand in with what we can do. So we can always look at it from that perspective. Yes, we will be losing part of what we used to do, but what can we gain from that? What can we now do that we couldn't before?
So let me pose the question a bit differently. So we used to lose a lot of physical jobs and repetitive jobs. Now it's more of intellectual. And my main question is, when AI, and it already starts to influence decision makers in the world, so say CEOs, presidents, prime ministers, whatever, because they interact with it, and more they will trust them to make analysis, to, I don't know, review their speeches, whatever. Won't we be losing a lot of our autonomy and agency and what makes us humans, of just letting ourselves be so influenced by the machine? Don't you see this as a threat, Clara? Or do you see that we can avoid it, or it's just a natural process?
Yeah, in this case, I do agree it can be, and it will for a while be a bit of a problem. I think that now, like, the content that we consume, a lot of it is AI generated, and even people that are decision makers are making decisions built on things that were thought by AI, and that is scary if we think about it in that way. Um, and I honestly don't see a direct solution for that. I, I do think that we at some point will always be influenced by AI in the way that we think and build things, which can be good or bad.
Well, I know you always have some hot takes on this kind of thing, so let me hear them.
I think it's we've kind of covered that part. It's but we don't know. We don't know, but
Yeah.
I think we all felt this and feeling of uneasiness when GPT-3 came out. I think at least I did. I panicked a little bit. I was like, okay,
For me, it was
well,
when I saw the video of the guy talking with GPT. I don't know if you saw it on YouTube. I think it was GPT-3, but before ChatGPT, uh, where it was like answering questions and talking about life and whatnot, and it just freaked me out.
yeah, I remember I was doing our first project with GPT-3. So it came out and we started doing projects with it because people wanted it, right? And the whole project, I was prompting it and working with it and trying to do some agentic stuff. I was scared, like it's like scared to see, like, why is no one, like, what's happening here? Am I placing myself here? Like, what's going on? And I felt that again with GPT, so with O1, but it was very brief. I very quickly, the same problems pop up. It's like, oh, it's so much better than me at coding. Cool. So what else can
Yeah.
it do? Nothing. That's kind of, I'm not scared anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good take. But now I wanted to shift just a bit the topic of our conversation and focus more on the business perspective and how it actually brings value, and how do you see it incorporating companies? Because, for example, we at TensorOps, right, as AI consultants, we come in companies or they come to us with problems and we try to solve them, or make the company more AI powered or whatever. But how does it actually create value, and how can we expect these new models to actually create value instead of just being cloud expenses? That's a hard one sometimes.
The LLM developers get real quiet. Value. It's no, but you're talking about adding value to uh, existing applications, right?
Yeah, but if you want to take it to new ones, go for it.
I think it's hard to see which. So we're looking currently as a business, like of LLMs in general. We're looking to find um like perfect fits. So this company exists, it's already big. We put LLMs into it, and suddenly it goes 5x. I don't think that type of fit exists that well. Like maybe. So we saw the Klarna use case last time around, and yeah, it's really good in terms of uh, doing
So the
customer
Klarna
support.
being the ones that try to replace and start replacing their what was it, phone assistant? No.
Yeah. They were doing. I'm not sure what kind, but basically they replaced a lot of the customer support queries with LLMs, and it's a really easy it's plug and play solution. I'm assuming what Meta is doing with the content moderation. They've had huge issues in recruiting staff for content moderation. It's a really bad job to have. You see a lot of stuff humans shouldn't see for 8 hours a day, and it's a whole thing. So with Llama, I'm assuming these days they're replacing a lot of these people, which is good. These are kind of the exceptions, really. Like you're not going to find these fits everywhere, but you will find companies that manage to make businesses based on this new technology. But those are going to be the
Startups.
real big ones. Yeah, it's kind of like when the dot-com bubble, every company wanted to have a site. I mean, there was the whole pets.com debacle where it was like, I think it was a online pet shop that went public for some reason and huge stocks and all that. And nowadays you think, like, it's just silly, right? But at the time, people couldn't see ahead, and the people that actually made money on the internet were companies that started on the internet.
Okay. So maybe there is a room for these new startups to grow and overtake some of the giants. Maybe. I don't know. How do you see that, Clara? Is it for existing companies or just new ones?
I think that a problem that I see is that the existing companies are now like trying to ride the AI wave, and sometimes not necessarily in the correct way. Because if you have like this solution that you want to use, but you don't really have a problem for it, you're just creating more problems and not really a solution. So I do think that these bigger established companies are trying to jump on AI. They really need to think about it as in, do I really have a use case that AI is going to solve and is the right solution for it? Not just, oh, I want to use it because it's cool, it's the new thing to do. And this new model is super shiny and new and I want to try it out. But even it's not really what I need. And the smaller companies that are just popping up that are really focused on AI, I believe that they are trying to create the right problems and try to solve the right things with AI. And there is where I see that these newer companies that are just popping and really thriving on the AI will take the upper hand here.
Huh. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that for existing companies, what is lacking in order for them to succeed in this Gen AI is a good product person with AI vision that is capable of filtering out and weeding out good use cases from bad use cases. I know
Yes.
that we've seen our fair share here at TensorOps of problems with clients or with potential leads coming to us, and then the product vision maybe not being the most aligned. Um, I know I've seen it. I don't know if you've both seen it as well, but how could we then solve this in terms of product perspective for these already existing companies?
I think us as consultants, I think we need to be clear and show our offering, show what we can do, show what LLMs can do, because they are capable of doing great things and having interesting conversations with decision makers at companies to try to see if it fits, if it's a good fit for the use case that they're seeing. And that's where you really do a good match, where you have a problem that needs a good solution and we come together and we build it. I think that we really need to be aligned on those ways.
Yeah, I think it's about not being afraid to say no. Uh,
Definitely.
On
that's
whose
how,
end?
on my end, I mean, in our case, on my end, on other companies, maybe the technical department should be saying no to the product department more often, specifically with LLMs, because we see some products where it's like, oh my God, who even, like, yeah, as a user, you try to use it, like every site has a chatbot that doesn't work these days. There was just some guy that went, AI guys, this is going to be the next thing. And then the whole technical department just said, okay, and then builds this half solution that doesn't really solve any issues. And you see this over and over again. So it feels like the people that truly understand AI need to start saying, no, that that's not possible, or that's not possible yet.
Because maybe saying no to some ideas will lead to better ones coming up, because people will actually put more effort into thinking product ideas, much like startups have to do, right? They can't just do what everyone is doing and succeed.
Yeah, and I've experienced that in my own projects. I've said no a lot, where I'm very often asked, "Hey, is this a good idea?" And I will very often say, "No, it's not a terrible idea, but it's too big, it's too ambitious, it's not a like you're starting. You can't have been doing LLMs for more than a year and a half as a company. It's really hard. Very few companies, so you shouldn't be trying to do your whole company around like, replacing functionalities with LLMs. You should start to enhance your current functionalities, and then we'll see." And this is, I feel like, the philosophy that companies that already exist for LLMs should do. If you are a new company that is LLM native, it's a different story. You should be disruptive. You should be problematic even, and you should try to do the blitz strategy of every startup trying to get funding and try to get user base and be a problem to other companies.
Okay. Any last points on it, Clara?
Yeah, I just agree with Gabriel said. I think it's a great opportunity to grow to if it's done in a good way. Like a lot of good ideas and new startups can shine from this if done correctly. So yeah, it's a definitely an interesting time to be experiencing the industry and how things go. And yeah, I'm generally excited to see where this takes us. Not super scared about being replaced uh, by a bot yet.
Yeah, I like the direction of conversation that we did. I mean, we tried to start with just O1. Let's just talk about O1 and its functionalities. It's always like that when we talk. It's like, oh, what's the future going to be? How is it going to impact? Then gets us back to present, right? Okay, but how does it create actual business value? How do we see it move along? What do we need to do as consultants, and even to educate other people on how to move? And I think those were some of the topics that we covered today. We could have covered much more, honestly. But I think that it's already brought a lot of interesting concepts and takes, and I'll certainly be interested to see the direction that we move along. Then the new models, the one that Google launches, I bet Anthropic won't be stopped. So yeah, I think it will be interesting. Thank you so much, Gabriel and Clara, for participating.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.